What's up guys, my name is Ace, and with the launch of the new event, we also got some weapon balancing updates, as well as a few other balancing updates for multiplayer, so today we're going to be going over all of those details. So hopping right into it, let's start off with the specialist changes. With yesterday's update, for Nomad, Ajax, as well as Torque, the cooldown time for their special issue equipment has been slowed down for all three of those, so that's for the Mesh Mine, the 9-Bang, and the Razor Wire. And in the past, there have been a few other little changes here that I haven't covered in every single video. So I just wanted to recap once again for you guys all of the charge times for the different pieces of equipment. Keep in mind, I didn't have the smoke in this image yet, but the smoke is also at the 1 minute 35 point. This is exactly how long it takes to charge each of these pieces of equipment. And this is more in line with what I would like to see with the special issue equipment. When the game first launched, most of the special issue equipment was pretty much the same as the frag grenade, the concussion grenade, and the Molotov at 1 minute and 9 seconds. So with the updates we've been getting over the past several months and this update that we got yesterday, they have been continually slowing down most of the special issue equipment, so now most of them fall in that 1 minute 35 mark, and I think this is a really nice step in the right direction. I feel like Treyarch has started to realize that the specialists have been getting a little bit out of hand with the fact that you have their equipment as well as their abilities, and they constantly lead to a lot of really frustrating deaths and situations, so it's nice to see they've slowed those down a little bit. In addition to this for the specialists, with Ruin, they've made it so kills that you get with your Grav Slam won't contribute to your next Grav Slam, because it was completely unique in that sense. None of the other specialist abilities would directly contribute to the next specialist ability. So now when you get a Grav Slam kill, or let's just say you get like a 5-man kill with the Grav Slam, you're not going to have a huge amount of progress towards your next Grav Slam immediately. And finally, with the specialists, with Firebreak's Reactor Core, they just made it so the kill notifications will take up less of your screen space while you're killing people with the Reactor Core. Very minor change, won't really make too much of a difference. This brings us to score streaks. We actually saw a few buffs for the score streaks. First off, for the UAV as well as a counter UAV, their duration has been buffed up to 30 seconds. If I'm not mistaken, pre-patch they were down to 25 seconds, so you basically get an extra sweep, maybe 2 with the UAV, and then the counter UAV just lasts that little bit longer. As for the drone squad, this also got a buff. They increased the damage for the drones. They also increased the minimum and maximum burst fire times for the drones. So what this means is they'll be able to fire for a longer amount of time before they like overheat and stop firing, because they do just fire in little bursts. And also they increase the clip size or the magazine size. I don't know what the drones use, but that just goes along with that. It allows them to have a longer burst before they essentially overheat and have to wait before they can burst again. Now for me personally, I'm a little bit confused by this buff to the drone squad. I feel like the drone squad is plenty powerful, but the reason most people aren't using the drone squad is because it's one of those streaks that Zero can straight up steal. So it's a risk that when you call in a drone squad, it's just going to end up killing you and your teammates. So that's the reason I haven't touched the drone squad at all, at least in these standard modes. I've been using it a little bit in bare bones, but I haven't touched it since Zero was added to the game because it's just a liability to be calling one of those in. So I'm not too sure this is the buff they needed for that. I think the drone squads were fine as they were. I would have preferred it if they just made it so Zero couldn't straight up hack them and take them for herself, and instead she could just destroy it with her Ice Pick ability. But that's just my opinion on that. So finally for score streaks, the Mantis also got a little bit of a buff, and with this one they just reduce the amount of time that the Mantis can be temporarily disabled. So if you do a bunch of damage to the Mantis, it will actually be disabled for a little while, so it can't move and it can't shoot at you while it's disabled. They've reduced the amount of time that you can disable it for, and also they increase the amount of damage you need to deal to the Mantis in order to disable it. So both of those changes I think are perfectly fine for the Mantis. And now that we have that out of the way, let's finally move into the weapon balancing changes that we got with this update, and in this case, it's all SMGs. So the first change to the SMGs, and this is actually the only nerf of this update to any of the SMGs, this is to the SAUG 9mm. All they did is with the Stock 2 attachment, they slightly reduced your movement speed while aiming down sight when you're using Stock 2. Pre-patch, you could move at 95% movement speed. Post-patch, you're down to 93% movement speed. So a very minor change, probably won't have a serious impact on gunfights, but it might help just a little bit with those really frustrating situations where the hitboxes don't seem to keep up with the animations. But again, like I said, this is a very small reduction. So now getting into the buffs for the SMGs, and there are quite a few of them. First up, we have the MX-9, which got one of the most minor buffs you will ever see. What they did with this one is they increased your 5-shot kill potential by half a meter. This is going to have basically no noticeable effect on any situations that you'll be running into. The chances that you're going to be in that exact half-meter window are so small that you probably will never notice any change whatsoever to the MX9. As for the GKS, this one definitely got a much more noticeable buff to its 5-shot kill range. This went from 5 meters up to 7.5 meters, so now it's in line with the 5-shot kill range of the MX9. And I think that's a nice step in the right direction for the GKS. Next up, we have the Spitfire, and just like with the MX9, this is such a minor buff that you will probably not notice any difference whatsoever with this gun. It got a half-meter buff to its 6-shot kill range, so instead of 7.5 meters, it's now 8 meters. This brings us to the CORDITE, and the CORDITE actually got some very noticeable buffs here to its ranges. As you can see here, our 5-shot kill range was increased once again up to that level of the MX9 and now the GKS at 7.5 meters, which is great to see. That makes the CORDITE quite a bit more powerful in close range situations. But in addition to that, it did get a slight buff to its 6, 7, and 8-shot kill ranges. So just in general, the CORDITE is going to be noticeably better at all ranges where you should be using an SMG, and I think that's awesome. I should also point out the 1-shot kill ranges in hardcore have increased for the CORDITE as well. Very, very slight increase, but I just wanted to point out that it did change slightly. Next up, we have the DAEMON, and once again, we have a very noticeable buff. This one is actually probably the biggest buff out of any of the SMG buffs in this update. With this, they gave the DAEMON a 5-shot kill range, which it didn't have before, so this is a 32 damage range. And this extends out to 7.5 meters, which is that magic number apparently for Treyarch with this update. But not only that, you can also see a very noticeable buff to all of its other damage ranges, and this is going to make the DAEMON quite a bit more powerful. It's going to be a much more consistent 2-burst kill up close, although I did want to point out, even with the high caliber 2 attachment on there, if you're hitting those upper chest shots, you still can't get a 1-burst kill. It's going to be a 4-shot kill minimum at point blank ranges, but it's still going to make it where in those close range situations, especially if you're using the high caliber attachments, you're much more likely to get a 2-burst kill rather than a 3-burst kill because it's much more forgiving. I should also point out for hardcore modes, this has significantly increased the 1-shot kill potential of the DAEMON, which has a relatively minor effect because most of the time, since it is a burst gun and it fires a really fast burst, you would still be getting 1-burst kills in hardcore, so it doesn't make that much of a difference, but I wanted to point that out anyways. So if you guys haven't tried the DAEMON since this update, make sure you give it a go. I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised. I thought this SMG was actually quite decent before this update, and now it's noticeably more powerful than it was. So finally for the buffs, this brings us to the Switchblade, which also got a very noticeable buff. With this, before the patch, the Switchblade had a very, very short 5-shot kill range. You had to be practically touching the enemy to get a 5-shot kill with the Switchblade, whereas post-patch, it's now 7.5 meters, which is in line with a bunch of those other SMGs from earlier. And this makes the Switchblade a lot more powerful than it was before this update. I used to think this SMG was like a lower tier SMG. Now it's definitely up there as one of the better ones in the game. But in addition to that huge change to its 5-shot kill range, you can see the other ranges were buffed as well for the Switchblade. So just in general, the Switchblade is noticeably better than it was before this update, which I also do find a little bit frustrating because the Switchblade was the tier 100 unlock for the last event. And for a lot of people, I don't think they really bothered going for the Switchblade because it was in a not so great state. So they thought, oh, why would I grind so much to get this Switchblade when it's not really all that good in the first place? And now immediately after that is now locked in supply drops, they buffed the Switchblade and it is much, much better than it was before the update. So definitely a bit of a frustrating situation. I wish they would have done this maybe a couple weeks ago to give people a chance to really grind out that Switchblade if they realized they wanted it. But that's just my opinion on that. And of course, I'd like to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I should also point out with the Switchblade, our 1-shot kill potential with that has also increased. It was equal to our 5-shot kill range in core modes. So the 1-shot kill range has tripled for the Switchblade, but having said that, it's still a pretty short 1-shot kill range, even when it comes to SMGs for hardcore modes. But that's it. Those are all of the weapon balancing changes that we got with this update. Like I said, it's all SMG related and mainly buffs. And just having a look at them overall, if you guys want to see all of the SMGs that changed, the before and after, here's the big graph for you. As for my thoughts on these changes in general, it's one of those things where I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. I feel the assault rifles, tactical rifles, and LMGs were dominant and still are dominant, but this makes the SMGs just a bit more viable against them. However, I'm not sure if this is going to be enough for some of the SMGs. I think the Daemon is definitely as powerful as it should be. I don't think that needs to be any more powerful than it is as it is right now. And also, just looking at the stats, keeping in mind I don't have much playtime with this yet, the CORDITE also seems to be in a pretty good place here. I still don't like the fact that the SMGs have a 9-shot kill range, because that is just absolutely ridiculous, especially against armor, because that becomes an 11-shot kill, which is just far too many bullets to kill, even at longer ranges. But like I said, steps in the right direction. I'll give them credit for that. I kind of just wish if they were going to be making such small steps for so many of the guns, it would be nice to see them do it more often than they currently are. I get if you're going to make big jumps, you'll probably want a decent amount of time between those big jumps. But if you're making just small steps, little incremental changes, I think they could ramp up the frequency of those updates on those incremental changes so we get things right where they should be a little bit faster. That's just my opinion though. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about all of these balancing changes for multiplayer with yesterday's update? Are you happy with the SMG changes? Are there any SMG changes you're unhappy with? What do you guys think about the buffs to the drone squad, for instance, as well as the UAV and counter UAV? And finally, do you like the fact that they've been slowing down these special issue equipment so it takes longer to charge them up? Like I said, just let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah.